With this semester being mostly online, June and I have found it pretty difficult to adjust to a learning environment that's all online. Switching to Zoom lectures and asynchronous classes is a pretty big jump from what we're normally used to on campus, and at times it can be pretty overwhelming. I know for myself, staying motivated has been a really big problem this semester with just, I guess, the ability to slack off and like put off lectures for another time. It's a really bad temptation that's always just right over my shoulder. How about you, June? What have you experienced with this semester?
So I agree. Motivation is definitely hard, but I think for me, keeping track of everything has been the hardest. I say that because I have some lectures that are synchronous. I have some lectures that are asynchronous. I have one class that's in person. I work with an organization on campus where all of our meetings are virtual. So it just feels like with all these different moving parts, there's just a little too much to keep track of. And I've found that just like making a weekly list and breaking it all down by class, okay, which lectures do I have? Which assignments are due? And what are my meetings this week for work? And just having it on one piece of paper, one list a week that just has it all there, and I can just move down the list. That's been helping me a lot to keep track of it. But even then, things still fall through the cracks. Our first meeting that we were going to have, I completely flubbed and I just lost track of it. And, luckily you were sweet about it, but it definitely adds to the anxiety of like, oh, am I supposed to be somewhere? Is there a lecture I'm supposed to be watching? It can be a lot.
Yeah, no, I definitely know what you're talking about. Like, I think there's something about having like your work life, your school life, and then your personal life all take place in like the same room. Like at least for me, like I'm in this room all day, every day, unless I go for like a walk or something. But there's no physical separation between like a lot of these different like parts of my life. And I feel like whereas normally, while like keeping track of like assignments and tests can like normally be a little bit of a problem, but like in the day you have like a planner or you have like some sort of like app to just like keep it all on like your calendar. I feel like with this specifically, it's been extremely hard just to kind of mentally like remember almost like what time it is. Okay, now it's work time, now it's school time, now it's whatever time. And I feel like that sort of mental detachment from like what you're supposed to be doing has made it a lot harder for me to separate everything out, because I have a calendar for school, for work, for personal events, for doctor's appointments, for stuff like that. And it feels like now my calendar's swamped with stuff that I look at in the same screens in the same room. I don't know. I think that sort of dynamic has made it like a lot harder to really parse out the time in the day. You know what I mean?
Oh, I completely agree. I also feel that the last 6 months since the pandemic has started has simultaneously felt like the longest 6 months of my life. And also like, okay, it's fall now. What happened to the summer, keeping track even of like what day it is has been hard. Because like you said, if every day it's kind of like, when is work, when is school, when is my personal time, when is all this different stuff, and it's kind of all up in the air constantly. My Tuesdays sometimes feel the exact same as a Saturday, and trying to keep track of it is really hard.
Yeah, no, I definitely know what you're talking about. Like I feel like almost time, like in the day, like on the actual day, goes by so slowly. Like in between all the things you have to do, and just sort of like any downtime just feels like it takes forever. But then you look back on the week, you're like, oh my God, how has it already been a week? Like
right.
In retrospect, it's going by like at the speed of light. But for some reason, in the moment, like if you're not doing anything, it just feels like time is standing still. I don't know. It's a very weird dynamic that we're in right now.
Yeah, I agree. yeah, it seems like Monday hits and I'm like, all right, here we go. It's going to be a long one. And then it's like you blink your eyes and it's Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's been that way before, but in the past, as when I was a transfer student, before I was a transfer student and I was at GRCC, I worked basically a 9 to 5 and I went to class at night, and it was like, this is my routine. This is what I'm doing. And while I do enjoy the flexibility that's been given from everything being virtual, it just feels like almost too vague and like almost too much flexibility, because then there's so much responsibility on you. In the past it was like, I have to be to work at 8:30. That's it. But now it's like, well, I can do my work whenever I want to. And so I don't really want to do my work a lot of the time. So when does that time come? So.
Yeah. Like when I found out that all my classes were going to be asynchronous, I kind of like got excited at first, because I'm like, okay, cool. I get to now schedule out when I want to do everything. Like, it's up to me. If I have something going on that day, I can not do anything that day and then make up the work tomorrow, or do all the work beforehand or whatever. Like, I have full control over my schedule and my day to day. But I think in actuality, what it's been is me figuring out that, oh shit, I have an assignment due like in a week. And now I have to like sit down and focus on this. And like, I pull like 2 days or something like that, just focusing on like that one class. Then I realized that, oh, great, I've neglected 2 other classes and I have this other thing coming up. So it kind of feels at times like it can be like you're running like 4 different races, and you I guess forget about the other ones that you're involved in until like it's too late, and you're like, oh great, and I have to go and make up time.
Yeah.
There's a reason I think that school is scheduled the way it is, where you go to a lecture at a certain time twice a week, and you have like that rigidity in your schedule, because I think that you aren't really meant to learn this way. Like, I mean, if we were in the middle of a global pandemic, we wouldn't be, So I think that adjusting to this new environment is supposed to be hard for everybody. And I think it's just about trying to figure out those little cheats that you can do to try to help yourself stay focused and figure out how to use your time,
Yeah, I agree. I recognize that not everybody has this option, but for me, I know not doing my work in the same room, sometimes I work in the living room, sometimes I work in my bedroom, sometimes, I have a front porch. I might go sit on the porch. It kind of helps to break up the day a little bit so that it doesn't feel like I'm just sitting in the same room all day, every day. But I reckon, depending on your housing situation, you might not have that much space to just move around in. Or you might have so many roommates, going in and out of your house that it's too distracting to be in other places that aren't your bedroom. I can appreciate that as well. How do you break it up,
Yeah, no, I think that's really what it is. I think it's being able to, even if it's not like, even if you don't have like different rooms in your house, even if you don't have all the space in the world, just finding those like small things that you can use to separate things out, like separate like work from play, like you said, assignments from like lectures and stuff like that. I think that's super important. And I think just when it comes to even staying motivated, I think part of it is that you can totally just burn yourself out from just being in a physical location. Like, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You could be doing a million different things. You could be doing nothing, but just because you're in the same room, like physically, I think that can completely just kill all of your motivation. If you let
cabin fever, man, cabin fever. I get it bad, and I'm worried about this winter too.
Yeah.
I'm worried about this winter coming and feeling, and maybe not having the ability to go sit out on my porch as much because it being too cold. Or like you said, it'll be hard. Like, you've been taking your walks. It'll be harder to do that. And so I think establishing good routines right now is going to be really important, because the wintertime, I think, is going to be even harder.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, one of the things that I was looking into to kind of help break up the day is this thing called the Pomodoro Technique. And it's one of those things that kind of always gets thrown around whenever we talk about just, I guess, like good work ethic and like using your time wisely. But I've tried it a little bit this semester and over the summer while I was doing some work with Engelhart, which is one of the fellowships here on campus. And it helps. It really does. Like, it's one of those things that seems kind of hokey at first, like, oh, this is just some BS that they talk about in some seminar, but it helps. It genuinely does. And so it was developed in, I think, like the 80s by this guy named Francisco Cirillo, and it's called the Pomodoro Technique, because Pomodoro means tomato, and he had this little tomato kitchen timer that he kept on his desk. And what he would do is he would set a timer for like about 25 minutes, and he would do whatever work he had set out for that. It's like one specific task, like whether it was, like, let's say, reading a textbook for, I don't know, a cooking class, because now you got me on the tomato, right?
So cute. I'm just picturing the little cute tomato there.
Yeah.
Tick, 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 tick.
But yeah, like whatever the task is, if it's reading a textbook, doing homework, studying, reviewing notes, whatever, he would set his timer for 25 minutes and he would just focus on that task. And then after the timer went off, even if he was in the middle of something, he would stop what he was doing, he'd get up and go to a different physical location for about 3 to 5 minutes to just relax. So if that meant just like going out in the hall, if like you're in a dorm or something like that, and you don't really have multiple rooms, just going out to the hall, going outside for a quick like fresh air, or even if you don't have that because it's the middle of winter, just getting off your desk and just going to a different place in the room would probably even work. But the idea is you're going to separate yourself from the space that you were just doing that work in. And after about 3 to 5 minutes, whatever you've set up as like your interval, you go back to work and you do either continue that task if you need to continue that task, or you start working on a different task, whatever you need to do. But then after about 4 breaks, you give yourself a longer break. It's about like 15 to 30 minutes, some interval in between there. And you keep repeating the cycle until you have finished all the things that you need to finish for that day. And those time limits are like completely changeable. Like if you work better in like 30-minute chunks, do 30 minutes. If you need more of the time than just 3 to 5 minutes to relax and decompress, then take like 10 minutes. It doesn't really matter. The idea though is that you're setting out a rigidity, and you're setting out times that are non-negotiable, where you have to do work and where you have to relax. And so if you're in the middle of something and you're like, oh, I just had this one last idea that I need to write down for like this essay or something, well then that will get you just a little bit more of that motivation to come back to the task and to finish it up after your 10-minute break or your 5-minute break or whatever the case is. And it's surprisingly effective. It really is. It's weird. It's weird how the brain can just like work off these little games, you know?
Yeah. I have heard of this before. However, I've never really tried it, so I'm definitely going to give it a shot. I think that it's kind of feast or famine for me a lot of the time, where I either don't do any work in the whole day. I think about doing the work, but I don't actually do any work. I'll even sometimes sit down and pull out the work and still not do any of the work. But then I have other days where I do 8 hours of work, basically straight. Not necessarily in a procrastination type of way. I'm not a big procrastinator, but sometimes it's just like, all right, I'm going to do 8 hours of work. But I'm usually so drained after that. And also, you know, how high quality is my work when I'm getting into that like 5th, 6 hours straight, you know, when I'm feeling burnt out, but just want to get it done. You know, I think this would be a nice way to break it up and just make sure that, okay, yeah, I'm only doing this work for 25-minute chunks or 30-minute chunks, but I'm focused, you know, I'm not drained, I'm not burnt out, because you're taking those little breaks. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, like usually in the same way, where if left to my own devices, will have days where I do absolutely nothing, and then days where I feel like I need to make up for it. And I feel like usually the work that I produce when I am in those like manic burnout, like, oh, spend the whole day doing work phases isn't too bad. Like it's pretty on par with my normal stuff. But I think the biggest problem is that while you are spending the day doing nothing, you are just thinking about how you're doing nothing. And you're like, great,
Oh yeah.
I'm not doing anything. I'm going to make up for all of this like tomorrow or something. And so you don't feel good in that moment.
Right.
And then
It's like a big plate of relaxation with a nice big helping of guilt on the side.
Exactly. Definitely. And then when you do end up getting around to doing the work, it doesn't feel good either because you feel like, oh, great, I have to finish it now. Or, wow, I really wish I could take a break here, but I know that I can't. So it's just
Right.
kind of like this horrible, like your work might be fine, but at the end of the day, you feel terrible about it. So
Yeah.
like breaking it up like this is a good way to eliminate that like slacker guilt, for lack of a better term. But yeah. I've also found that, so even though my classes are asynchronous, they do have like posted times where like normally the class would be from like, I don't know, Monday, 11:30 to 1 or something like that, right? And instead of looking at that time and being like, oh, well, I'll start it at 7 or something like that, taking the time that's posted and actually doing the lectures or doing the work during that time, I found has helped out a little bit just because then you're just like, okay, now this is the time that I need to sit down and start doing this work at. So kind of having that time and keeping it like, and even if it's not the time that's posted on the class, just picking a time and saying that, okay, on every Monday and Wednesday, I'm going to be taking these 2 classes, and every Tuesday and Thursday, I'll take these 2 classes, or whatever the case is. Just making sure you have a concise schedule for every single day of the week, really, I think helps me a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I do my weekly list. Another thing that I do to try to keep myself from being distracted, and I know this, most people try this, but I think sticking to it is the key, is if I'm working on an assignment, I'm supposed to be doing, say, a reading and answering questions based on the reading. Closing all the tabs on my computer that are not related to that. You know, I don't need to have Facebook open. I don't even need to have my email open, you know, because again, eventually I'll just kind of be like, well, I could just check, you know, just see. And that can be very distracting. And I think going back to your Pomodoro technique, I'll think I'm working for 30 minutes, but I'm actually not, because I'm spending, you know, little bits of time actually throughout that 25 minutes, like refreshing my email over and over again. Or even sometimes I'll even have Canvas open and be kind of anxious about, again, missing something, like, what am I missing here? Am I supposed to be, you know, whatever, and kind of anxiously checking all of my classes to be like, oh, is there any assignment due that I'm forgetting about? Again, it just becomes a distraction. You know, you have a task, just do it. Or like just have your focus on that one thing. So yeah, I've been trying to make a habit of closing all tabs that are not related to the task, because I get distracted easily.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, I think it also helps to, in your like actual physical work environment, remove distractions that like if your phone is there and you know that you check whatever Instagram like all the time, maybe turn your phone off or put it on like the other side of like the room or something like that, or turn it even upside down, you know, just so you can't see it.
Right.
Just like helping to eliminate those distractions, period. I find to be pretty good as well. Like taking care of tasks before you have to do work as well. Like you have to go out and get groceries. Maybe do that before you do homework, so you don't have to panic about like missing, like, oh, am I going to be able to eat today? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely a strategy of mine too. If I have like little things that I want to do, even just like work out or take a shower, a lot of the time I'll do it before I get to work on my homework, because otherwise the whole time I'm doing homework, I might be thinking about oh, I kind of want to work out, or I really need to take a shower. My hair feels greasy. Like,
Yeah.
and even that becomes a small distraction, where your head's just not really in the game. You're thinking about buying those groceries. You're thinking about, yeah, I got to walk my dog. Things like that. I mean, you could use those in the break times too.
Yeah.
If possible. But I know that for me, if I don't write things down, it feels like I have 1,000 things swimming around in my head, and I'm like trying to like grab onto something. Writing it down and having, like you said, kind of a fixed schedule or like more of a routine helps. Really, just really helps me personally.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, one of the most important things to kind of remember about this weird time that we're living in is that no one has it easy, that everybody is like struggling to do their best. And you're not alone, Like, I mean, I'm struggling, you're struggling. Like, it's not a conventional time. And I think that the most important thing is to just cut yourself some slack and accept that, like, okay, you might miss some stuff here and there. Stuff might fall through the cracks. And if it does, it's not the end of the world. Just try to do better next time. But give yourself like that forgiveness for the time that you do mess up or you do miss an assignment or whatever. Like, if you're a straight A student and you get a B this semester, that's not the end of the world either. Like,
but isn't it though?
It does feel like it. It definitely feels like it.
I just want to add to that yes, I am a straight A student, and I definitely struggle with perfectionism, and that has made, again, it's a very anxious time for me because things are so uncertain. I feel like I don't have as much control as I normally would over a lot of things. When I forget about things or miss something, I really beat myself up about it. But I've been trying really hard to, like, as you said, cut myself some slack, cut other people slack too,
Yeah, absolutely.
You were very gracious about me just totally ghosting you on that meeting. And I felt terrible about it, but you came back and said, hey, it's okay. Like, we'll reschedule, remembering that other people are also, might drop the ball on stuff. You might drop the ball on stuff. And that's okay. We're all just kind of trying to make it work right now.
Yeah. And with that being said, like, reach out to the people around you, like if you're having problems in like a class or something like that, odds are probably half the people in that class are in the same problem as you. If your roommates are having problems with something, probably like you could help them and they could probably help you. Like, just reach out to people around you to see if like they can help you in any way that you might need it, and just go easy on yourself and go easy on others. I think is kind of the takeaway. And do what you can, but don't beat yourself up.
Yeah, I totally agree. So this is all we have for today. Please stay tuned for more episodes to come on topics such as housing, student orgs, and mental health. Do you have topics you would like us to discuss? We'd love to hear what you have to say. Thank you for listening.
Thanks.